Hello, welcome. This is the Let's podcast. And Let's is a nonprofit organization in Zambia combating domestic violence. Little tiny warning before we begin. This is a safe space. It's a movement. So many countless voices go unheard across the world. And we are trying to create a place that we can empower people, speak openly and honestly, learn new skills, and focus on topics that people might find difficult. We're going to have difficult conversations talking about different things like domestic violence, gender-based violence, mental health struggles, overcoming societal barriers, getting through challenges, and from people's different perspectives as well. We're going to have survivors' testimonies. We're going to be focusing on real life experiences, and we're amplifying these positive voices that we can have in our lives that we can learn from. And I just, it's just a warning really, so that you're aware of what you're going to be listening into. Things might be uncomfortable to hear, and things might trigger people. So with that in mind, I want you to know that you're not alone. So if you feel like this isn't a show you should listen to because of that, then don't. If you do listen and you feel like you could maybe benefit from speaking to somebody, or you want to share something with us, or you're seeking support, please reach out to us. You can get to us through our website, which is www.letsstoptheabuse.com, and you can reach us via WhatsApp from any country, or phone and text in the UK. The number is +44 74 95 33 88 30. You're not alone. We want to be here to support you, and we want to grow and learn from all of the experiences that are happening around us, and we want to let's be part of the change. While we are trying to become part of the change and changing the narrative, I just want you to be aware that Let is an up-and-coming service. So please, yes, do reach out to us. But just be aware that if you're in crisis, please do access the crisis lines in your area, because we are not a crisis support yet. So you may not get an immediate response. Thank you. Today we're joined by the lovely Arwyn, who is going to talk us through a little bit about his life and experiences, which include some really unfortunate happenings of cancer diagnosis twice, some other physical health problems, and feeling suicidal, attempting suicide, and also losing his brother by suicide, still praising God on the other side. Welcome, Arwyn. Thank you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Pleasure. My name is Arwyn Bailey. I'm known as a Time Lord. Which means that I capture moments in time through the art of photography and video. And that's what I do for corporate clients, basically. And I work all over Europe, work throughout the UK, etc., etc. And but that's what I do.
Amazing. And do you enjoy this? I'm assuming you do enjoy this kind of work. It's your passion.
Yes, I do. I mean, I remember being given a box camera when I was aged about 4 or 5, and for me, I think it was by my grandmother, and I've still got what I think is that box camera. Wow. But for me, I was just captivated as a young boy, I remember standing there, and it's in the winter, and the local park is in snow, and it's in winter, and it's iced over in the pond, and ducks are walking on the ice in the pond, and this magic box I had on me, and when I did the shutter and took a picture, I couldn't wait to get back my 12 black and white photos. They were all rubbish. They were terrible. magic, being able to stand in the moment. And what I think about photography is, no matter who you are, when you take that photograph and take that image, you're the only person in history who's ever taken that very same image at that moment in time. Nobody else has got the image. It might be similar, but nobody else has got that image in 15 billion years of history of the Earth. Nobody has got that image. It's unique. It's so unique.
That is such a wonderful way of looking at it. And a little bit mind-blowing if you say it like that. The only one in history to ever have captured that exact moment.
Yes.
Beautiful way to look at it. So, Arwyn, could you talk us through a significant turning point in your life? And if you're happy to share some of your personal life and as well as your career if you choose.
Yeah, no problem at all. So one goes hand in hand with the other. So how you're feeling and how you're responding to people and your mental approach to life does affect your career and what you can do within it. And so basically in 2012 was a bit of a pivotal year for me. So in the January, I recontracted a minor form of cancer, bladder cancer. I was aged 38 when I first had it, about 12 years earlier. And so I was now in my 50s, early 50s. And basically in 2012, January, I had it again. I've never had chemotherapy or any treatment, fortunately. It's the second slowest growing form of cancer, prostate cancer being the slowest for men. And basically they go in, they resect it, and I'm fine. And I've had a few resections of those in my time. Then in the April of the same year, 2012, my brother sadly took his own life. And that was a bit of a shock. I'll go into a bit about that in a minute. And then in the August of the same year, I had bronchial scar tissue on my left lung. And then in the very end of September, beginning of October, my mom, who had had 3 pulmonary embolisms, had a massive stroke. She was registered blind. She'd lost about 80-90% of vision in one eye, and she only had about 40% left in her right eye. And she'd had these other incidents, which are sort of mini strokes. And she had a massive stroke, as big as you can have without it killing you. I was her power of attorney, and under medical advisement and with agreement with the family, we agreed no food and water. And 10 days later, she passed away in front of us. Yeah, so that 2012 was a bit of a year. And I don't say this to say, oh, poor me or anything, because all events in people's lives are relative to you. They're relative to where you are. And I don't want one event or one series of events to be touted as being more serious or greater or lesser than somebody else's. This is my story, and they did affect me. And you may have just one event. It may seem like a small, insignificant event, but these events can have major impacts upon our lives. And so it's relative to you. So that was a major turning point. And at that year, during that time, I was a financial advisor running my own company, had done for many years, and I downsized it a bit. And I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. And during that year of 2012, we had to do some new exams and be qualified by 2013, January, and more exams. And I was on target and off target all the way through that year. And in the end, I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. Had a chat to my amazing wife, Helen. And we've just celebrated 40 years, Ruby wedding anniversary.
Congratulations!
Yeah, but how she's put up with me for that long, who knows? So, but she's an amazing lady. So I had deep conversations with her, and she was gracious enough to say, no, I can see why. So I sold my business. I went away to a family, and other members of the family, extended family, had a cottage in North Wales, went away on my own for about a week. Came back, and I announced I wanted to be a photographer full time. And so I officially set up in January 2013 as a photographer. and saw through the sale of my business, which was difficult and painful for many reasons. But yeah, so that was my story of 2012, and it was really a changing point in my life, really. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely sounds like, oh my gosh, it sounds like a year from hell, if I'm being honest with you, Arwyn. Like, I can't imagine the pain and the strength that the pain you went through, the strength you needed to just get up every day. First of all, having the re-diagnosis of cancer for yourself that you're having to deal with and manage. Then the loss of your brother, but not just loss. Completing suicide is a completely different way of losing somebody. So that, extreme loss in that way. And then on top of that, again, your lung issues, your physical health coming back as a problem. And then just to top that all off, losing your mom in such a way. I'm sorry that you went through all of that, and I'm so grateful that you've opened up today and sharing your story.
That's okay. What I would say is that I look at things like this and I think, at least I'm not in Palestine. Okay. At least I'm not in Ukraine being called up to fight on the front line against Russians. Mm-hmm. At least I'm not. So, as I say, we have to be careful of immersing ourselves in these, and that's what I went through. So with regards to my brother, he had abdicated from any relationship with his siblings for quite a while. And about 2 years previous to this, he actually rang us all up individually and said, look, I know I've done this for various reasons, and basically I'd like to have a relationship with you. And I thought, okay, and I was cautious. I used to be really close to him when we were growing up. He's the oldest of us four. And basically, he was my big brother. He was my hero. And sorry.
Sorry, just take a moment.
That's right. I'd started to trust him again, and he wanted to have at least one phone call a month with me, which we were doing. And literally a day or two before he took his own life, he rang me up, and I was dealing on the phone with somebody else who was having suicidal thoughts, a friend, and I said to my son, I said, can you tell Uncle Gareth I'll ring him back? Anyway, and it got late with this other friend. I thought, okay, I'm too tired now. I'll ring him the next day. And then the next thing I heard was he'd taken his own life. And when that happens and we'd re-established a relationship, I just felt, you feel a number of emotions. You feel betrayed, you feel angry, you feel lots and lots of things, and there are different stages of grief that we go through. I think it's 7 stages of grief over a period of about 3 years. And I'd say anybody going through any grief, any bereavement, don't be hard on yourself. There is a process to go through, whoever you are, and whatever circumstances. And so that's difficult. And then I remember in the July, I was at such a low point. I've always struggled with mental health ever since school. And I planned my own suicide. And for many, many different reasons, but I was at low. But then I found a counsellor who were rubbish, and then I found a really good counsellor in 2013 in January, and they were amazing. And one thing I learned from suicide, and this is an unpopular thing to say, is that when you're in that, and I've been in that situation in that year and since, you are at a position where you have no choice. And it sounds strange talking rationally now, but you actually have no choice, because you truly believe that you will be better off, and so will everybody else. People think it's selfish, but it actually isn't. People think it's a lack of courage, or it's courageous. People have all sorts of thoughts like this, but until you've been there, you can't fully understand the position that you find yourself in. And I found myself in that position in the July of that year and in the October of that year, and since occasionally going down that spiral staircase to depth of despair. Because what depression is, and this is again unpopular, and I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, depression is quite selfish. Your world revolves around you. And all I wanted to do was curl up in a fetal ball and stay in bed and not get up. That's all I wanted to do most of the time during a lot of that year. And I felt, what's the point? And I wanted to take my own life. And I was at that juncture. I'd written the letters to my kids and my wife and others. And I was at that point. And you are at the point of no choice. You can't see any other way out. You might be sorrowful. You are sorrowful. But you still can't see another way out. That's my experience anyway.
And you're right. I think, Arwyn, so my background is I did a lot of years in crisis, suicide prevention, management, and that's one thing that we came across a lot. And we all have our own personal stories, don't we? And so I can empathize in lots of ways with you. And I'm truly sorry that you felt like that. And I'm sorry that you do go through times where you feel like that. You're right. It does feel like you have nothing else. It's the permanent solution, and you can't see it as a temporary problem, like the temporary problems, and that feels like the only way out. I can understand that. And how do you deal with that now? Then how do you get yourself?
Yeah, what I found. So the initial counselling I went through in January 2013. The initial counselling I went through then in January 2013 was really good. And I did that for about 2.5 years, but then feelings and so on came back. I went to the doctor. I was on antidepressants, citalopram, and so on, which helped. My family helped. My wife helped hugely. Having kids, grandkids helped hugely. But basically, then later on, but yeah, before this, so after I'd had a resection going back to January that year, I remember being in hospital, recovering from the resection from my bladder cancer. And this was a build-up. This was before my brother took his own life. I wanted to basically poo and shit, and I wanted to vomit at the same time. And I had my head over the sink, and my bowels were loose. Which way do I go? But I wanted to vomit. And I remember having my head in that sink bowl, in the loo, saying, God, I don't want this anymore. Because other things had happened the previous 2 years as well. And so basically, that was the start of it. All the culmination, me verbalising it.
So when I was at school, our music teacher had given up on music, and I was brought up on classical music. And what our music teacher used to do in the lesson, he used to let people bring in a record and they could play it and all the rest of it. And it was very often rock music, pop music, and I knew very little about this. And one day I was learning piano. I'd learned piano, and suddenly these chords strike up, bam, 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 and then a piano riff, and my head shot up. And it was Meatloaf, Bad Out of Hell. And I was absolutely captivated by the whole album. So I've been a Meatloaf fan ever since I heard that, aged about 12 or 13. But one particular song is Where Angels Sing. And it's about going to a better place. It's about going to heaven. And meet me on the corner. I'll be waiting in a big old yellow cab, slightly Americanized. But it's somebody who's going to a better place. And some of the lines, I think they go, when money ain't the power king and kindness is everything. It's more than that, though, heaven to me. It's a place where there's perfection, where there's no pain, there's no suffering, where we are living with our God and Father. And this song, as a popular song, popular in the sense of modern song, actually encapsulates some of that, not all of it, but some of that for me. And I'm a massive Meatloaf fan.
Anyway, so then how do I cope with it now? So I don't know when it was. It was about a couple of years ago. I wasn't going through counselling anymore, 2-3 years ago. And I came across this lady who talked about hypnotherapy at a network meeting online. It was during COVID. Juanita. And basically, I was intrigued by it. So as a Christian, I was always thought hypnosis and self-hypnosis, you're giving over control and it's evil and it's bad and you mustn't do it and so on. However, just before this, I'd been working as a photographer with a hypnotist who taught dentists how to help patients self-hypnotize. If they needed anesthetic, they're allergic to it or fearful of it. And I photographed her teaching dentists how to do this. And there's video of Sharon, she's an amazing lady. There's a video of her, which was years before. A 10-year-old was having root canal surgery whilst under hypnosis. And so I started looking into this. I started realizing this is not about giving control. All of these movies where somebody has a trigger word and they go and kill somebody, a load of bullshit. Yeah. Sorry, it's rubbish. You cannot force anybody to do anything against their subconscious will. It's impossible. So you're not giving over control. What you're doing is you're having somebody guide you. So I went to Juanita and I booked a one-to-one with her. I said, okay, let's try it. And I then actually, before that, the counselling was CBT, psychodynamic, using breathing exercises, breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, so let shapes come to your mind and colours. And for me, greens and blues and round shapes are soft. If I'm on red or orange, even yellow, and it's a hexagon, octagon, you don't want to be near me. But basically, that's, if you like, from what I understand it, partial hypnosis. But anyway, so moving forward then to Juanita. And so I did 3 sessions with her. And it was absolutely incredible and liberating. And on the second, I always thought there was something in my childhood. I remembered something happening in my childhood suddenly in the Cub Scouts. I was in a kit cupboard, the door was slightly ajar, and it was dim lighting, and I was getting something out. And then I heard this person come in behind me, one of the leaders, a male leader. I turned round. He then put his hand down the front of my shorts. I thought, what's happening? And then the door opened. Somebody else saw what's going on. They closed the door and walked away. Then he took his hand out and walked away, and that was it. Wow. And I session, and I was suddenly memorizing it, because what happens with your subconscious when you go through PTSD events, it closes down. The thing I learned from Jackie, my first counsellor, is that it's like an athlete who injures a limb. Your limb says, don't use me because it hurts, I'm in pain. But if you don't use that limb, it atrophies. Mm-hmm. And you can't live without a subconscious and a memory bank working and building new memories. You can't live. We know very little about the brain, probably about 5% of it. We don't understand it. Mm-hmm. And basically, suddenly thereafter, after doing this session of hypnosis, and I did 3 sessions with Juanita, suddenly my child memories, I was aged about 8, maybe 10 at the most, but probably 8, 9 when this happened. And I always remember leaving the Cubs, and I don't know why I left the Cubs early, before age, and then we moved house, but I did then rejoin the Scouts a bit later. But I couldn't remember much in my childhood, snippets, glimmers. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, I'd wake up in the middle of the night. These memories of my childhood are just flooding back. And it's like I'm now viewing my life, but it's almost as though it's a person that I hadn't related to for 50 years. Wow. I'd actually closed down my conscious, so I didn't want to be hurt again. And then gradually it opened up, but my previous memories to this instant. And now I'm sort of compiling some notes and memoirs and noting down things and so on. And so I found the whole process fascinating. So what do I do now? Well, I was actually filming a friend of mine who was going through an operation, a long surgery, 7.5-hour surgical. And I used to faint at the sight of blood in the hospital. I used to faint when people gave me an injection. And after these sessions with Juanita, she actually issues a recording with some advice on, and you self-hypnotize, go under, and then basically you and this one session was about confidence when I had this incident happen. And I played this recording as I went to sleep the day before the operation. I was in the theatre videoing. And I woke up again and I played it again. I went into that operating theatre for 7.5 hours. I didn't faint. I wasn't sick. I didn't vomit. And I stood there and I filmed a whole surgery, 7.5 hours.
Wow, gosh.
Because I've been through this session and then I'd had this recording about confidence. Mm-hmm. And so what hypnosis is, it's somebody tapping into your brain and guiding you. That's what it is. It's not giving over control to anybody. It's not evil and so on. And I had some spiritual things happen to me as well, which align with Christianity. And it was incredible. So now I use breathing exercises. I could self-hypnosis. I could do it now in 6 seconds. I could be under.
Wow.
You know, and so I use all of those things. And some people say, my wife says, oh, you were sleeping. I'll say, I wasn't. I was self-hypnosis. And so that's what I do to cope now. And then I use prayer. I'm a Christian, say. I pray. I believe in God, a living God. I believe Jesus Christ is my Savior. And so I pray. I use sung worship. I listen to music. I take time out fishing because I'm on the spectrum, what was called Asperger's, now autistic. And I need time on my own, and time by water is quite a common thing. I reckon that a load of anglers, the carp fishermen particularly, are on the spectrum. I reckon virtually all of us are, the living community. Anyway, but water just calms me down. Doesn't matter if I don't catch anything. Just being there in nature and the water, and I reset, and I have a foundation then to go back into the world. Mm-hmm. So they're the things I do to cope today.
Those are really helpful.
A long answer.
No. It's a really helpful answer, because you've just given people different ways that they can themselves access, if they're going through something that's anything related to yours, or even not, just hearing your story and seeing how things have worked for you, in terms of, you spoke about the self-hypnosis, you spoke about deep breathing, and then you've given some different, prayer, worship, yes, wonderful, and then obviously distraction with fishing and being around calm water, and recognizing that sometimes, sometimes even people who aren't on the spectrum also do benefit from having time on their own. Yeah.
Being on the spectrum, you can't claim exclusivity. And one thing I've learned is don't use being on the spectrum as a excuse. We're still responsible for our actions, unless it's very, very extreme. We've got some friends with kids and so on, with godparents and so on, kids, and they're extreme. They really are extreme. I'm sort of just an oddball. And funnily enough, my other siblings are. My dad was very extreme, quite extreme. My mom, she was probably the mildest. And basically, we're all on the spectrum. So a family of 6. But me, when I was growing up, now I've got these memories, it seemed like the world was normal and everybody else was odd. And I had to go through my years learning that it's actually the other way around. It's the other way around.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that there's actually, I don't know what normal is, Arwyn, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, that's a good question. What is normal?
What is normal? Yes, absolutely. And it's wonderful that you guys, recognize you're all on the spectrum. But I imagine that must have been quite a wonderful environment in some cases, but also opened your eyes to different ways of working with people and relating to people and communicating. So,
yes.
Arwyn, I wanted to ask you. So you spoke about the really difficult place where you were on the phone supporting somebody else who was experiencing suicidal thoughts, and then you told your son to tell your brother that you'd call him back. Is that something that you've thought about often, or is that something that affected your grief?
I felt guilty, but there was a situation at work which was a straw that broke the camel's back for my brother. Where it was a situation at work. I've got to be careful what I say, but in the end, he thought he was going to lose his job, but he wasn't.
Oh.
It wasn't. It was in this day and age of political correctness, which made me angry, actually.
Yeah.
Of one person at work, I don't know the person, I don't know why they said what they did and all the rest of it, and so on. Because at his funeral, the head of the social services was on his phone to me, and he said, "We will understand if you want us to keep away, because this obviously affected him." I said to him, "Look, what happened at work is not the thing that caused this." Because in my brother's letter, he wrote to whoever finds my body, "I'm calm about this. I've known all my life this day would come, and this is now the day." So my brother, as I said earlier, he didn't have a choice. He believed it's destiny almost, which is very sad. So it wasn't the work situation that did this. He'd had these feelings, and these feelings of mental health. And people on the spectrum, there's more prevalence of suicidal thoughts, people on the spectrum, than people who are not. And basically, he decided to take action. But I then said to this guy, head of social services, on the phone, I said, no, you're welcome to come, staff come. And they came, they gave us cards. And we had a card, and I remember from one person who who couldn't be there, said thank you, because he was a training social worker as well, my brother. But basically, he was the best trainer she'd ever had. And then a lady come up at the funeral, and she said, "Look, he trained me. I was changing career, going back to work and so on. He trained me. I cannot tell you how good he was as a trainer." We had these people saying this to us. So it made me angry initially. So I was guilty, then I was angry. And you go around in a very rapid circle of emotions, very, very rapid, of anger, sadness, sorrow, anger at him, anger at self, guilty you never phoned him, blah, blah, blah. And it's so rapid. And with all grief, doesn't matter whether it's suicide or anything else, I sincerely believe that I believe as a Christian, we were created to live eternally. So therefore, when we entered into a world whereby we now have illness and we die, that is alien to our inbuilt spiritual DNA, which is why we struggle with it so much. We struggle with illness, and we struggle with death and grief and bereavement. And the one thing I've learned is I used to think anybody who is depressed, because I built a mask, built a front, not letting people see the real me, not even some of the people very close to me. And basically, that's how I coped. That mask is now gone. And basically, what I now do is I actually sit in a place where I've learnt to live with bereavement. Of my father passed, my mother, other in-laws, etc., and my brother. You don't get over it, because I used to think, you're depressed, just grab life by the bollocks and get on with it, for goodness sake. That was my attitude to anybody who had depression. Just do that. Now, that's not my attitude. My attitude is totally changed and transformed. And now I try not to wear a mask. And I say to people, and I live each day with regards to other people. If they like me, they like me. If they don't, doesn't matter. I'm not trying to be liked anymore.
No.
And most of the time.
That's such a inspirational place to be at, and it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to achieve. being able to take your mask off and live the world in the world that we live in, that is so judgmental as it is, and expectations of being a human are so difficult. So I think it's amazing that you can do that. So well done to you, and well done to everything that you've overcome with this way of thinking, and utilizing the skills that you have, like deep breathing and worship, and taking off the mask and leaning on your family like you said you have. So that's a wonderful skill to be having and passing on to people. And you're a really strong person, Arwyn. You're inspirational in terms of what you've done and achieved, and look at you you're at a place now where you're going to Italy this week to do some work for a client you've had for 4 years, and doing something that you absolutely love. So what a different place.
Another song is a modern take on Amazing Grace. This is by Chris Tomlin, and it's Amazing Grace with an added sort of chorus, and my chains fell off. And the original was written by a slave trader who became a Christian. And within Amazing Grace, there's this line that goes, "'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved." This mystery that we can approach the throne of an awesome, fearful, incredible, loving God and Father through Jesus Christ, yet we are saved and redeemed and set free by the same grace that is fearful in many ways. It's a mystery. It's not fearful, something to be frightened of, but in the way that some people think, but it's fearful in the way that it's a total mystery. Yet we have a personal relationship through that same grace. And it's a real struggle for us to sum up what this mystery means and what it is. But this song encapsulates it probably as close as I've ever come across. "'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, yet grace my fears relieved." The same grace flowing from God the Father through Jesus Christ to us. And then my chains fell off. I've been set free. Incredible, incredible work.
Well, I wouldn't like to put myself up as a paragon of virtue and coping. What I try to do, and I'm pretty rubbish at it, is what I've learned is, so I go around calling myself Time Lord because I capture moments in time, but I'm into sci-fi. And I remember one of the Star Trek movies, I love that too, Star Trek, Star Wars, but I remember one of the Star Trek movies where they meet God, and this guy takes over the ship, and he's going to take them to this place, and so on, to meet and all the rest of it. And he can read their minds. And basically, he offers to read Captain Kirk's mind. And Kirk goes, "Why? So that I might think back that I should have turned right when I turned left, or I should have turned left when I turned right." It's that sort of conversation. And that's all stuck in my mind. And what I try to do, and I emphasize the word try, I try and learn from the past, plan for the future, and live in the moment. Because my first counselor, very early on, she was very wise, and she knew how to be brutal and how not to be. I said to her, I've set up this new company, don't know whether it's going to work and so on. I've said this several weeks. And she said, "Arwyn, don't use the word should, could, would, should have, could have, would have." She said, "Because you're living in the past or the future." She said, "You can't do that. You need not do that." And I said to her one day, I said, well, when she said it again to me, I said, "Well, what comes then?" And she said, "Well, what you need to do is live for 3 hours, a 3-hour perpetual clock." I said, "Well, what happens at the end of the 3-hour perpetual clock?" She said, "I'll tell you if you want." I said, "Go on then." She said, "Death." And she's right. And that really shook me. Now, she was very careful when she said it and how. So what I have tried to do is completely get rid of those 3 words and derivatives of them, of could, would, should. Because I could have done this, or I could do this. You're living in the future or the past. And you're living in situations that are beyond your control. you're not going to control it. So what's the point of it? It's wasted energy. So that's genuinely what I try and do. And the other thing I try and do is I try and get rid of the word happy. Because happy, does it make you happy? Is it happy? The thing about happiness is it's dependent upon the car you drive, the vacation you have, the house you live in, the food you eat, whether you go out, whether you've got hobbies and so on. That's what happiness is. It's reliant upon the material. We have some control over that, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes things happen in our lives where that goes by the wayside. So what I prefer is this guy in the Bible called Paul, the Apostle Paul, who was in prison for his beliefs. And he said he's learned to be joyful in all circumstances. Whether he's hungry, starving, whether he's got lots of food, whether he's free or in prison, he's learned to be joyful because he has a greater hope than this earth can offer. Okay. And that is a personal belief. People can disagree with it who are listening. It's up to you. However, I try and be joyful because that is a conscious decision. It's a conscious way of looking at things. I'm rubbish at it. Don't come to me to do it. However, just by doing those 4 words from your life, literally, and then learning to be joyful.
That's absolutely amazing. I think when you're talking, people can't see, but I'm nodding along because I'm thinking, I don't really know what the meaning of happiness is, and to me. However, when you talked about Paul, amazing story. I love Paul's story and everything that he did and does. And then when he talks about joy, that's my word that I use as well, actually, Arwyn. So when I always say that regardless of what's happening in my life, I'm constantly trying to seek joy in the moments, even in the difficult ones. So yeah, absolutely. I agree with what you're saying. And I was going to ask you, like, what do you do to build resilience in the face of difficulties? What strategies have you got? But you've actually talked about quite a few. Is there any others that you would want to add?
No, I might talk to my wife. I think it's very important. I've now got a friend of mine, he won't mind me mentioning him, John. He's my best friend, male friend I've ever had. And we meet up, we go to the cinema, we'll watch a movie together, we'll have a beer together, we'll just go down the pub and just chew the fat, we'll pray together. And I think having a life partner or a friend and I can go to John and he to me, and we can just share whatever we want with one another. And being able to do that, being able to share the hurt, the pain, the joys, give advice to one another. And we can sometimes give advice to one another or give a word to one another that maybe isn't quite welcome, but we're prepared to take it because we have such a close relationship.
Absolutely.
And he truly is my best friend. The best male friend I've in my life.
Wow.
I remember we were away with other friends, and I said to them, I've just got to go and ring my friend. I went and rung them, and I came back downstairs, and my wife said, "So you've been on that long? Hour and 45 minutes?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Wow." And suddenly at that juncture, she suddenly realised that this relationship was something different that she'd never seen with me in 40 years. Mainly because I walked up. And I didn't allow them to get close. I didn't want them to. Now, John, I'll give his full name, John Hurrell, you're an amazing mate. He is truly my best mate I've ever had in my life.
That's amazing. And I'm really happy
so I think find somebody, but it's equal. It's a friendship of equality.
Yes.
It can't be friendship of one way.
No.
One way traffic.
No.
Like a cow.
No.
Be a friendship of equality.
And I think that's the basis for good quality friendship, actually. Where you're both putting in and you're both taking out, and that's I think lots of people find that quite difficult to find, a person that can truly be there for you.
Sorry, you're broken up a bit.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I was saying that I think a lot of people find it quite hard to find a good quality friendship where you can put in and get out as much as each other in a very equal sense, and being real, because and it's wonderful that you have it. A lot of different men that I've spoken to find it quite hard to identify a man in their life who they would call their best friend. So I'm grateful that you've got that in your life, and I'm grateful that John has you as well.
Us men are very bad at it. You went over knitting over a cup of tea, whatever. Us men are really bad. And basically, my wife said after my brother, she said, and the vicar at our church, they both said, you are going to a counsellor. I said, I don't need one. And they backed away. And then they eventually put me in touch with one. They were for various reasons, not for me. So I stopped that after a few months. And basically, I said, see, I've done it. I'm a man. I can cope.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in the January 2013, my wife said, no, you're not coping. We cannot go on like this. And they found another one, and basically I went to them. And that completely transformed. Jackie was totally different ball game.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that's a plus side. I think I'm hoping that all these interviews that I'm having are going to encourage men that are out there listening to this, that you can get help. It isn't weakness. It's strength to seek help from somebody else and guidance and things that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off then.
I mean, what I would say to people is, men, okay, go and find your local men in sheds. It's just blokes who come together, they repair stuff like the repair shop, and while they're repairing stuff, they just chat to one another. Or look up the amazing charity called Tackling Minds. They've been on one of my favourite programmes on TV with Whitehouse, Bob Moultrie and Paul Whitehouse. And this young guy was suicidal, and he was an angler, he founded this charity, and he's called it Tackling Minds, and they now get referrals from the NHS. For blokes, mainly blokes, just pull up and go fishing. And there are a load of anglers throughout the country, and it's spreading. There aren't enough, but it's growing. And blokes are just go to your GP, said, I've heard about this Tackling Minds. Please, can you make a referral to Tackling Minds and see if they've got a slot for me just to go fishing? And bloke, you don't have to have fished before, completely whatever, but it's blokes just fishing, and just they get chatting. It's almost as though we need to be doing something else to open up. Us blokes.
Yeah. I've recognised that. Definitely.
We need another activity.
What would you say to men that are listening in communities and countries that can't access things like Men's Shed? Do you have any suggestions for them?
I think the first thing is go to your GP, go to a church, synagogue, whatever, and try and find somebody who is willing to become a friend of yours. There are lots of men around who are lonely as you. It's just a case of taking that brave step.
Thank you very much, Arwyn. That's really helpful. I wanted to ask you what you're most passionate about and how you pursue your passions.
Sorry, you broke up. What are my passions?
And how you pursue these.
What are my passions? I'm passionate about telling stories through my job. I'm conscious of time. People may have turned off by now, but anyway, I am passionate about telling stories through a single photo, a video stream which might be 10 seconds. How do you tell a story? I'm passionate about doing that. I'm passionate about my kids and my grandkids and who they've married. I love them to death. My wife, passionate about her, and we're in the autumn of our lives now, but we've got a great time ahead. Whenever we choose to retire, both of us love our jobs so much. That isn't on the immediate horizon, maybe medium term. And yeah, I think you asked as well, what do I want to leave as a legacy? I remember when I kept a diary many, many years ago, I came across that question myself, and I remember drawing a gravestone. R.I.P. Arwyn Bailey. Beneath I've written, "Lies a man of faith." That would be my legacy. You know, that people see in me a poor reflection, it is a poor reflection of God and Jesus Christ. That's honestly what I would like people to think of when they see me and a legacy of me. I fail like everybody else, but that would be my legacy, I would say.
So your legacy, just because it did break a tiny bit then, your legacy is for people to see Jesus in you. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. That would be ultimate legacy and my aim.
And it sounds like it sounds like you're working in that way, Arwyn. It sounds like you're working in the way that, you know, considering all of the struggles that you've been through, and then you still turn to God and you still seek the Lord and you still see Jesus as your savior. I mean, that's amazing that you do that. Do you know what I mean? I think you're doing a wonderful job. We always feel like we're, as human beings, it's hard to live up, but by grace we are. You know, God has gifted you with
Yeah. I fail every day. And the thing I find, I have a lot of conversations with atheists. Even read a book called Noah and the Giraffe with an atheist friend of mine. Basically, what I find is that the majority of people who say there is no God or don't believe in a God, I don't know whether it's a majority, that's a sweeping statement, but a lot of people that I come across, not everyone, but a lot, they've actually had a bad experience with the church, in quote. To them, don't look at the church. Look at the founder, Jesus Christ. Look at his teaching. Look at what he said. Look at what he did. How's the got a problem with that? And so I would say to people, don't put your faith in church. Don't put your faith in YouTube. Don't put your faith in the Virgin Mary, you know, and all the rest of it. I'm very cautious what I'm saying here, because I've got some very sincere Roman Catholic friends who I believe are Christians. But I believe we need ultimately faith in Jesus Christ, and through him we find God our Father. And my aspiration every day is to find my identity in God the Father, not an identity in society's whims and whatever society says is the latest thing, but I'm seeking my identity in God the Father. That's what I'm trying to do each day. How did he create me, my talents, and how can I do some for him? That's really what I'm trying to do.
That's amazing. And I believe that you are doing that. I do believe that you are walking by faith, and just hearing you talk and the way that you describe your relationship with God, what you're trying to achieve. And I think that's something that we all need to, all of us people who believe in Jesus, that's something that we need to be seeking on a daily basis, is walking so close to Jesus that we're getting dust from his feet upon us, you know. Yeah, amazing. Yes, you said before you were conscious about the time. I just wanted to ask you, what are you grateful for?
Ultimately, I'm grateful for what Jesus has done in my life, for rescuing me from the miracle of preventing me from taking my own life. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my kids and grandkids. I'm grateful for the privileged life that I've led, because I've lived in 1/3 of the world that is not generally homeless and starving, whereas 2/3 of the world is. I'm very grateful for that, and embarrassed and ashamed at the same time. But I'm grateful for all those things. And ongoing, I'm grateful for opportunities. And the other thing you become more, I'm 64 in June. The other thing I think you become more grateful of is you do start thinking of the remaining days and how long you've got. So on average mortality, I've got another 15, 16 years at most. And you start thinking about what you've achieved, what you haven't achieved. Have I done enough for God? Have I not done enough for God? And having conversations with God about that. But I'm also grateful for a God who, through Jesus, we can approach, we can say sorry. And he says, I'm still with you.
Yes, he does.
All of that.
Thank you so much, Arwyn, for sharing that. I wanted to thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us today, and I truly feel grateful to be part of your journey in some way, shape, or form. And I'll keep you in the loop so you know what's happening with
Yeah. Thank you. It's been such a privilege and an honor, and thank you for asking me.
Thank you so much for your time, Arwyn. I wish you a wonderful day. I wish you luck with it. God bless you, and God bless your family, and continue to grow in your relationship with Christ. Thank you so much.